What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in this video, we are going to be showing off 3 separate teams against each individual variation of the recently released KIZUNA clash against Rob LUCCI. Now, in this particular team, you're going to be seeing the ones that we talked about in my preparation video. So this was the first team going against the strength variation, utilizing the combination of Yamato as well as the Shanks crew captains. By utilizing these 2 captains, it allows us to completely, not really completely in a lot of circumstances, but in this content, we can completely ignore the special bind and the bind that does occur in this content. We're also going to be using Rob LUCCI's crewmate ability, which is going to be kind of important once we get to level 31 and above, as the crewmate ability of Rob LUCCI will actually buff conditional boost, or buff the chain boundary, or the chain lock from Shanks with his crewmate ability when he taps with a tandem slot. The tandem slot is given to him via the Yamato super switch effect, which is very important. And then we've got Croc to get rid of the poison slots, that is. And then we also have Zoro, which can provide some despair removal and an orb boost. So a pretty interesting team that gets the job done. Moving on to our next team is going to be a different squad, utilizing Shanks' crew still as the captain. Instead of the friend captain, we're going to be having him as our main unit. And then the friend captain we're going to use is the brand new Vegapunk, who is really good against basically all of these bosses. Makes sense. He's basically, the whole content is built around using Legend Vegapunk. Now, we are using some pretty interesting units here. So we do have the Crocodile and Doflamingo, which has the ability to buff the chain lock that Shanks' crew is able to give to us. That's literally the reason why they're here. So if you have another character that can buff chain locks in any sense, you could just use that over Croc and Dofi in this scenario. We have Chopper to remove Despair and remove the poison slots when we get to the final stage. And then Robin just provides us with a really strong conditional boost. It's a very, very simple team, and it does get the job done. So if you have the applicable units, definitely a thing to go with. However, I don't think too many people would have Crocodile and Doflamingo, so you'd want to replace them, as I said, with a character that has the capabilities of buffing the multiplier of chain locks, so that past level 31, this team will still be capable of beating this content. Moving on to this team. Now, this team is going to be the one team versus all that I've built for this one. So we're going to be using these Vegapunk-centric team, but you do see that we have the Yasop on the crew. Now, Yasop, with his effect, the whole reason why he is here is because he has really interesting crewmate abilities. He has the ability to resist a special bind on himself, and he also resists special reverse. His special ability provides -2 turns of cooldown for the crewmates, for the whole crew, that is, and he's basically here just because of that alone. And then we can use the Vegapunk special to grant multiple different buffs on all of these different stages. We also have the Shaka Rare Recruit, which we got on the Sugo Fest, and he's so good, allowing us to get around a lot of different gimmicks on a couple of these different stages. And you do see we're using the Pythagoras Treasure Map Rare Recruit. Main reason for it is because he removes Threshold. So there's going to be a couple different stages with Threshold. but he also provides chain boundary and a chain boost, and despite the fact that in later different content he is going to get interrupted against, we actually have Lilith on the team to help remove any infliction of attack down that gets thrown at us. So Lilith is basically here just as an attack down remover realistically, so definitely not needed on the team, but because we're running a mono Vegapunk team, we're going to go ahead and try and use it anyway. So now we can go ahead and move on to the PSY variation of this KIZUNA clash, and with this team, this is the team that I talked about in my preparation video. This is a really solid team actually. One thing that I kind of overlooked and wasn't really anticipating was the amount of poison damage that gets inflicted on stage 2, and kind of a blessing in disguise that we opted to use Marco as our captain. Due to the fact that when we enter stage 2 we have such low HP, Marco will auto trigger his special ability because of the captain ability effect. When you fall below a certain threshold, he auto uses his special, which gives us really good healing. It gives us color affinity on this stage as well, and it just makes this stage super free. The Reiju Rev Recruit is very important here. However, in order for Reiju to work effectively, you do need a powerhouse captain and also an int captain to get everything to activate properly. So luckily, Marco fulfills all the conditions for Reiju's effect. Reiju removes poison, so you don't even need the support to remove poison, but more importantly, it provides 2 turns of very strong damage reduction. When you enter the next stage in stage 3, you're going to be hit by a pretty big hit of preemptive damage, so you want to have damage reduction that you've launched on stage 2 that can carry into stage 3, that will enable you to tank that hit and then go ahead and proceed to win the fight. Now we get to have a look at our secondary team versus the PSY variation. I'm going to be using Uta as the main captain this time around. Uta's just a solid unit all around. She's always going to be a relevant unit, still one of my favorite legends in the game, and we're going to be using her in full force here. Crocus is going to be our substitute for Reiju from the previous fight. So Crocus does very similar things where he gives us 2 turns of 90% damage reduction this time, which is important because we are not really healing as much. Looking back at it, you could probably use the Uta superclass on stage 2, which does provide a pretty decent amount of healing if you are a little concerned about that. Crocus removes poison, gives us 2 turns of 90% damage reduction, which helps us carry those buffs into the next room to tank the preemptive damage hit. And then of course Vegapunk provides a bunch of buffs that Uta doesn't provide. And then we also have LUCCI, who's just nice to just give us more damage if we need to use him. And then I was also considering using the Galette special, which the only reason why I put Galette here is because she does delay the enemy, and then Vegapunk can get you a delayed conditional boost. But looking back at it, it wasn't really required for this team to work in this certain way. Moving on now to the one team versus all that I had built initially for the previous fight versus LUCCI. This time around we're going to be using it against the PSY variation, and I mean pretty straightforward once again with Shaka. He's going to be the main unit that we're going to be using on stage 2 because he does provide the ability to remove poison, and he also provides the same level of damage reduction as what Reiju does. I believe it's also a 70% damage reduction hit. You are seeing that I am using the super class of Vegapunk on stage 1. It's kind of important because I want to have as much HP as possible. However, looking back at it, the main reason why I wanted to do this is because of the third fight, which we'll talk about in just a moment, because the amount of HP that you're going to have on that fight is very, very minimal. So either way, you probably want to use both super classes on the DEX variation, not specifically on the PSY variation. But you do see that we do get through it still comfortably due to the Shaka being as good as he is. And then of course we just use the Yasop special to trigger the Uta support to give us pretty good amount of damage to get through stage 2 comfortably. And then the Vegapunk specials are going to be exactly what we need to get through this stage. Now we can go ahead and move on to the next team, which is the DEX team, and this is the team that I talked about in my preparation video, using Cora and Law as our main captain. They have the ability within their captain effect to remove 10 turns of despair, and then you've got Vegapunk friend captain, which can remove bind and paralysis. So just with these two captains alone, we're already resisting a bunch of different debuffs. You move on to stage 2, the Fukurokuju rare recruit you're seeing on this squad is fantastic for stage 2, gets around the damage threshold, gets around the attack down, adjacent slots changed into Wano for more additional damage. You do see that I used the Bonnie special as well, by hitting a couple of perfects on stage 2. When we move into the final stage, Bonnie will give us a chain boundary effect, so that works out really well for us, despite the fact that, you know, your beneficial effects are being removed. The chain boundary cannot be removed from the enemy, it gets applied after that removal anyway, which just works super well. And then the thing about the DEX variation is that there is a random intimidation that can occur, so you do have to be very cautious and read the text of the preemptive attack, or be very cautious of the icon that gets applied, so that when you use the Vegapunk special, you are applying the correct buffs on your crew that will not be intimidated. Now we can have a look at our next team that we have. This time I'm going to be using Vivi because there's not really a lot of good strength units that are also cerebral to take on the DEX variation whilst using Vegapunk as our friend captain. So Vivi is like probably one of the best units you could use here. Now in the previous team we talked about Fukurokuju and how key he was for stage 2, getting around most of those debuffs. And in this case, Robin and Jinbei are going to be fulfilling that same role, removing the threshold, removing the attack down, and then they just give us a lot of buffs that way, which is really nice. Now, we do also have Stussy. Stussy is very important for this team. Stussy is level limit break maxed. It is a free-to-play unit, so that shouldn't be too much of a difficulty, but it is important that this character is limit break maxed, due to the fact that the special is far more significant than the base form. We also have a key support on Robin and Jinbei of the Straw Hats to remove Bind and Despair, key one being Despair on the final stage. So if you don't have that, you can just replace something else to have 2 turns of Despair removal, so past level 31, you'll have the ability to remove Despair that is inflicted with the support and the Stussy special. Now, once again, be very cautious of which Intimidate is being applied, so that when you use Vegapunk special, you can use the right buffs. And with that, we make our way to the final team, using the one team versus all once again. I'm not really going to talk about this one too much. You guys can see exactly how this team exactly works, but that's going to wrap it up for me. So thank you so much for watching the video. Hopefully you did enjoy this one, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all of the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.
Quite.